Hi. Hi, everybody. There's 11 of you here. I'm going to give you a few more minutes because there are a bunch of more people registered. There is a chat button. If this is your first time Zooming with us, there's a chat button at the bottom where you can chat and ask questions. Because there is so many of you, I'm going to keep you on chat, especially once we get started. I have a hair in my face.
Trying to be tidy.
Trying to be tidy. So today, this is our first icon class. This is so exciting. I've missed you all. I've missed teaching icon class. Oh, hold on. My doorbell's ringing. Did everybody find the chat box? Participants. At the end, I will unmute you. There's only 12 of you, so it's not, well, 13 of you. So it's not too bad. But the chat box is at the bottom of the screen. So if you have questions, good morning, Kathy. Just type a little question in that box for me and we'll get you all fixed up. Hi, Shirley. If you don't want to say it to the whole group, you can tell it just a direct message to me and I will see it. I've got my little chat box open to the side. I don't have my glasses on though, so I can't see. Wonder where they are. I have no idea. We are going to do, so this month and next month for sure. Oh, hold on, I got to admit one more person. Admit. Found your camera. There we go. Good morning. So today we are going to do a sewing lesson, doing decorative stitches, playing with the patchwork program. I don't know, has anybody ever played with the patchwork program before? Because we're going to do that today. We're going to play with some single stitch stuff today, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then after we get done with sewing, we're going to get into some embroidery and do a little basics in embroidery. So what I sent you in the email was there's a lesson for each of these that's just a lesson that just goes through things. But these are projects. We're going to do the projects in this class. And then I'm going to send you the lessons too, so that if you want to work on those additionally, you can. Oh, sorry, my hair fell on my face. So you will have a lesson and then you will also have a project. We're going to work on the projects in this class and then you can do the lessons on your own. Now, I also sent you a cover page. So if you want to get a binder, you could get a little binder and stick that cover page in there, print off all these lessons and put them in a binder, and then you'll be all set and ready to go. The first 4 months have a sewing or embroidery or both lesson. And then after we get past month 4, then it becomes very much embroidery. So you sort of an idea of where we're going here. When I send you these lessons, they are going to have the supplies if you want to stitch along. If you don't really care to stitch along, or if you just want to stitch it on the scraps, you can do that too. But I will give them 2 more minutes to sign in and then we'll get started. Hello, Hank. Hi, Angie. Hi, Kitty. Everybody's here. Yeah, you can. Yeah, they can see you. Yes. Kim says hello. Don't worry. I'm going to switch the camera angle and it's going to be on the machine in a minute. But for now, we get to visit. No, don't do a little dance. So, nope, no dancing, no nothing. Everyone just stop being silly. I know. Such a Scrooge. Except for some reason, I'm going to have to do this a separate way, which is just going to, oh, I know why. Let's close you. Oh no, did I close you? Oh, so sorry. Hi, Kim, was trying to get ready, but oh well. Okay. I wonder what permissions I have. Grant necessary privilege for a live stream. Oh, I'm going to have to figure that out because I've got it set on the other computer, but I don't have it set on this computer. Oh, well. You. I got all these windows open. It just makes it confusing. There. Yes, just made it. Okay. I'm going to go for it. So today we're going to start with sewing. We're going to do sewing for about an hour. And then we're going to switch to embroidery. I will go ahead and allow you to unmute yourselves if you need to. I'm just going to ask that if you have a question, you unmute yourself, ask your question, and then remute yourself. Because because right now we've got almost 20 people in here. And when there's that many people on a Zoom, there's a lot of delay and catch up. So if you've got a question, just unmute yourself, speak your question, and remute yourself, please. We'll go down here and fix it so that you can do that. Okay, so you can unmute yourself. So if you've got any questions, you can unmute, ask your question, and then remute. And I think we're going to get started. So if you've got the lesson printed and you did do the actual supplies, we had to have a 6 by 6 inch square of fabric. And then we needed to come in and put a 3.5 inch square in the middle. Now, I don't know why this took me about 5 minutes yesterday when I was making another one. I was like, oh, how do I get the square right in the middle? And then I just did math. As I tell my children, math is so important. So you have a 6 inch square, subtract 3.5, that gives you 2.5. So if you measure an 1.25 inches from all 4 sides, that'll give you that 3.5 inch square in the middle. Then from corner to corner, it doesn't matter what corner to corner you pick, go ahead and draw a diagonal line. And that's going to be where we start stitching. Now, if you don't really want to do this, you don't have to. If you just want to watch, you can do that. Or if you just have a scrap of fabric and you want to stitch on that, you can do that. Then it also recommends that you use a piece of tearaway stabilizer. I am a super fan of fusing my stabilizer to my fabric. If all possible, I always fuse my stabilizer to my fabric. I did not on this one, and I've already drawn my chalk. So if I iron it now, I'm probably going to set the chalk in there. So I've just got it on the back. I'm actually going to also take a second piece of stabilizer and pop it on the back, because when I did do this, it's not terrible, but I did get a little puckering. And so I'm going to add that second piece of stabilizer because you can never have too much stabilizer. So I've got my 2 pieces of stabilizer. I've got my piece of fabric. It's really silly in the directions. They tell you to do this like it's step 12 or something. So I'm just telling you now, we're going to do that. So we're going to go into the machine first. Let me share. Oh, my machine took a nap. There we go. Hold on, somebody else wants in. Hello, Melanie. Welcome to the party. Yes, you can watch this later. I've got it recording, so I'll upload it to a private YouTube, and then I'll send you the YouTube link after class. I was just telling them, Melanie, if you have a question and you don't want to type in the chat box and you do want to ask it, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Just please mute yourself after the lesson or after your question has been asked. So we're going to start by going into the sewing. When we turn on our machine, we have that sewing embroidery option. We're going to go into sewing. I'm going to go into Kim's machine and change her background. You do not have to do this. It just makes it easier for you guys to see on the camera. See, don't get as much glare with that white background as you do with the dark background. So if you ever decide to film videos of your machine, there's a helpful tip. So we're in the stitch menu or the sewing menu, and we're going to load a stitch. We're going to go here to our stitch menu, which is the straight stitch and the zigzag. And we're going to look for category 4, which is satin stitches. Then over on this side, we're going to look for subcategory 2, which is over on the left. And we're going to select stitch 4, which is this triangle stitch. When we select the stitch, it pops up in our menu. We can just press this little bar here. Let's see, press the little bar and the window will go close again. There we go. What we are going to do to this stitch is we need to edit this stitch. And we're going to go down to stitch edit at the bottom. And we're going to change, or we're going to leave our length of our stitch or our width of stitch to 9 millimeters. We're going to change our length of stitch to 18 just by using the negative button. And we're going to change the density right here to 3.3, sorry. Now, you can also on your machine customize your screen, which means if there are a bunch of these functions I'm going to use a lot, I can touch them and drag them and put them up onto my screen. If I wanted to do that, I would just hit this little blue icon in the corner, and then all these little blue buttons show up over top of stuff. This is called the detach icon. And what that's going to do is going to give us the ability to move our pieces where we want them to go. I keep checking to make sure that you guys are still there. So we're going to, because we're going to use the mirror button a lot, we're going to move the mirror button up onto our screen. So we're going to take it and just drag it up onto our screen. Moving the mirror button to our screen, we're going to touch and hold and then drop and drag where we want it. Then we're going to touch the stitch edit button to close the dialog box because we're done with it down here. So if there were any other icons that were in that blue icon box, you could touch them and drag them and pull them up there. We are going to go into stitch repeat though, because stitch repeat gives us the option to do a single stitch or a patchwork, both of which we're going to do in this lesson. But first we're going to start with a single stitch. So we're going to click on the stitch repeat, and we click on stitch repeat, we get those choices, patchwork or single stitch. The first thing we're going to do is single stitch. When we select single stitch, it's going to tell us that there's one stitch. And it just tells us that down here in the corner. We don't want just one stitch. We want to tell it how many stitches we want. So we're going to go in and we're going to set our number of stitches. Actually, it wants us to touch it because we're going to use this more than once. So we're going to touch it and drag it and pull it out here. And we'll close that. And we're going to tell it we want it to repeat, I believe, yes, 7 times. So we're just going to press that plus button and put 7 stitches on our screen. So we've got these 2 boxes out here and we've got our 7 stitches on the screen. There's some other information here that can be valuable to you. Up in the corner, it's going to tell us which presser foot to use, that we need stabilizer. It's telling us which stitch we picked. It's telling us that our active features are single stitch program. It's currently telling us that our IDT is engaged, which up here tells us not to have it. So we're going to disengage that in a second. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to set it to tie off. So this tie off button right here, we're going to click on, and it's going to give us the option to tie off at the beginning, at the end, or have the cutter at the end. Checking to make sure nobody had any questions. We're going to tie off at the beginning. We're going to tie off at the end. We're going to add a thread cutter. And as we add all that, it adds it over here in our active features box. So anything you've got set for the stitch, it's going to show up in that box. If you've been in my class before, you know sometimes I get to the point where I half memorize these lessons, and then so I got to check my steps and make sure I didn't forget to do anything. So one of our, yes.
I got lost at the stitch repeat part.
Okay. About why we do it?
Not why we do it, but how to do it.
How we do it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so stitch repeat. So it's down here at the bottom. Oops, my screen's going quiet. We're going to hit stitch repeat down at the bottom, and then it's single stitch program. So let me take this out. So this little stitch repeat box is actually going to show up right down here. But because we are going to use stitch repeat a lot, instead of opening and closing this menu, because we're going to change it throughout this lesson. So instead of opening and closing this menu, we can drag that outside of the box. So we've got it up here on our screen and it's more accessible. But the specific project that we're going to do, whoever designed this lesson knows that 7 repeats is what we need to stitch first. So we're going to change it to 7 repeats. And then what's going to happen is when we actually stitch this stitch out without really having to do anything, it's just going to stitch those 7 stitches and then it's going to stop. So it's a pre-measured stitch for us. It's already determined what the length is. Bottom of the machine. Okay, yes. Hold please. Back up, back up. There. Okay, so we've got this little box here and we move this out off of our screen. We've preset our stitch to 7 stitches. And when we go to stitch this, it's just going to stitch those 7 stitches. It's going to tie up at the beginning, stitch the 7 stitches, tie up at the end, and stop. So if you're ever working on a project and you know how much space you have, like I want to do a row of stitching this long, you can go into the machine and tell it to only stitch that length of stitches. You may have to adjust so we adjust the length of the stitch to get it the exact size that you want it to be. But that's what we're doing here. So let me go in here. So now we've got our 7 stitches. We're going to go into the actual machine and do some sewing stuff. So let me stop sharing this camera and switch to the other camera. Oh, this camera work. Oh, I could probably move my camera so that it's where it needs to be. Okay. So does that make sense why we do it? We do it because we can. We do it because we can. We do it because if we want to know, if we know how far we're going to go, instead of us watching it and paying attention, we can just set it to do it for us, which is pretty cool. Let me get you. Oh, Thomas is like creeping in. There. And there. Okay. So this stitch on our screen earlier, remember it said that it wanted us to have the, there you go. It wanted us to have the 2A foot. This is the 2A foot. I know this because if I can get it to do it, it actually says a 2 right here. So it tells us it's a 2A foot. I can't really get the glare off of it. But the big thing about a 2A foot is, it's a 1A foot. The 2A foot has this little channel on the back of it so that we can do decorative stitches, satin stitches specifically. If you use a 0A foot, oh, I'm not very good at this, am I? I got to think backwards. If you use a 0A foot just has one little slit in the back. And with that one little slit, sometimes your satin stitches can get caught right here on this lip. And if the satin stitches get caught on the lip, then it gets really bulked up and really heavy, and then it stops feeding correctly. And then you get mad and irritated. And it's not the machine's, it's just you were using the wrong foot. So it's really important when the machine recommends a foot that you sort of take that under advisement and go, okay, well, it did tell me to use that 2A foot. And that 2A foot is because it's got this big, channel on the back. So we're just going to switch that foot out. But you also see there's no opening in the back for the IDT. So we have to disengage the IDT to put that foot on. Now, it is possible to put this foot on with the IDT engaged. I've had some people do this before. And when that happens, it will still sew, but it will not sew correctly. And then I get people calling and telling me stuff's wrong with their machine. And it's just, they've somehow magically got that foot on there and it's just not working right. So we're going to thread. I'm just using cotton thread. And the thing we're going to do is, let's see. Leave 7, yes. Stabilizer. At some point, I skipped a step at some point. So let me go back here real quick so that I can show you this, because this is important. Come on, you can do it. Well, we'll just do this. We want to start stitching with the point. So at the top of our machine, it's the flat is the first. We want to start stitching with the point. So remember how we moved the mirror button onto our thing? We're going to hit the mirror button top to bottom, and it's going to flip that stitch for us so that the point is going to be the first thing that stitches. So how this is on the screen is exactly how it's going to stitch out on your fabric. So that's really nice that we can look at this and it's going to show us the exact size and the exact way that it's going to stitch out. And if you ever are watching your machine screen while you're sewing, it's actually going to work its way all the way down through the stitch so you can see the progress that we're making. Okay, let's, whoops, wrong button. I'm not a good camera person, clearly. There, goodness gracious. Okay, so when we go to sew, we're gonna take and we're gonna make sure, and I'm gonna try to figure out the best way to show you this. When we put our foot down, there's some things, actually I'm gonna take the foot up and I'm gonna show you these things real quick. There's some lines on this foot. You've got a center line that goes down the middle of the foot, and then you've got these two little red wing lines. These red wing lines are right where the needle is. So if you want to start that point right in the corner, you're going to line those red side slashes up where the point is, and you're going to keep that center line that we drew with the center line in the foot. So I'm just going to take it and I'm going to put my foot down. And if I don't like it, I'm going to press my foot one time and bring it up just a hair. I'm going to put it down, well, maybe one more, and put it down. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to sew with my start stop button, because we have it set up to do exactly the length of stitch that we need it to do. Oh, remember what I said about the foot? That's exactly what happened. So, oh, Kim, it's like bonus bobbin thread in here.
Is there?
There's bonus. It's okay. We fixed it.
She's been working hard this
She's
weekend.
been working, Kim's machine's been working hard this weekend. Let's try this on this side. We'll do it. So I'm just gonna do a pattern, start again. I'm gonna rip that out when I get to it. And we're gonna start again. Let's slow it down just a hair. There we go, much better. So it's gonna do those 7 stitches that we programmed. I'm gonna pause for a second and rip out this little chunk at the bottom of our scissors, just happen to be laying here. So all I did was, so I made a mistake. You know, those happen, right? So all I did was went to pattern start, which I'll show you where that button is. It's actually the button that's up on the top of your machine where the scissors and the needle down and all that is. It's the button to the left of needle down. That's pattern start. If you hit that button, it'll start your pattern back all the way over at the beginning where we started from. Quite a little knot there. 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 Perfect. Now I'm just going to hit the start button again and let it finish off its stitch. So whoever masked this incorrectly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So whoever mathed this, I would say math this incorrectly. Because even if although I started a little low, I started about a 1/2 inch lower than I should have. So yes, so I did not get it measured correctly where I messed up and then had to flip. But let's do this. So now we're just going to compensate. So what we're going to do is, so I ended up doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to the other camera, and I'm going to show you how to mirror image this and reduce the stitches. Okay. And we're going to do this, that. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to end up doing 4 stitches for my other side. And I want to mirror image it so that it flips that stitch to start with the wide point going down instead of the short point. So I want it to be wide down. I might be able 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I have the ability, I can actually sit it up here and look at it. I'm going to do 5. There. Because that's a true size stitch, I can actually hold that up there and know that that's the size I want it to be. So I mirror imaged by flipping this little button, and I reduce my stitch pattern to 5. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line my foot up with the edge of the stitch. I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to hit the button to go. I'm just going to keep my foot on the edge of those stitches. And it's going to feed through all 5 of those stitches. And when it gets to the 5th stitch, which is on now, it's going to come to the end of the stitch. It's going to tie off. It's going to tie off, it's going to cut, and it's going to lift. Because I have those 5 stitches programmed in. So there. Now, if I want to do it on the other side, I'm just going to hit that mirror button again, flip my fabric over. So that mirror button gives you the ability to flip side to side without having to worry about flipping your fabric in an awkward way. Going to tie off, cut, and lift. Aren't they cute? So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep adjusting the stitch, making it shorter by adjusting the, there we go. So I'm just going to keep adjusting the stitch. This time I'm going to drop it down to 3. And if I want to check myself again, I can just hold it up here. Yeah, 3 is probably good. Drop it down to 3. And then this time I want the point to be on the bottom. So I'm going to mirror image it again. So now my point will be on the bottom. So they're alternating. One way, next way, next way. And I'm going to stitch that side out, lining it up with the corner. So having that single stitch gives you the option that you don't have to, it just does it for you. So now I'm going to do it this way, but since I'm going to flip my fabric, I need to flip my stitch so that it point goes at the top. I was living dangerously there. That last time I didn't hit press or foot down, I just hit the start and stop button by accident. That's a risky move. You never know if you're going to line up exactly correct. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to lower my stitch down to just a single stitch. And I want it to go flat side first. And then I'm going to flip the stitch again and do the pointy end the other way. So now I've got all of my stitches going the way that I want them to go. Every other row pointing a different direction, and I didn't have to adjust it. So now I'm going to do is trim up these little edges, and then we're going to play with the patchwork option. The patchwork option is just like it sounds, like if you wanted to do a patch or just sew in a square, that's what the patchwork option does. So we're going to pick a different stitch. Now, this is important. I realized when I did this that they should have done added another step to these instructions. So I am going to, yeah, Vicki, did your middle one go beyond? I think that they did not measure correctly for the middle one. So I think that their middle row, they were off, because if I remember yet the other day when I made my other one, I didn't make a note of it, but the middle row, I had a hard time with the measurement. So whoever made this, I don't think they measured correctly. So the way you can figure out what your measurement is, your length of your stitch is 18 millimeters. So they've got us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 at 18 millimeters. I don't have my calculator in front of me. So 6 at 18 millimeters is, oh, let's stop my share for a minute. 6 at 18 millimeters is times 18 is 108 millimeters. So if we divide that by 25, that's 4. Yeah, see, 7 is too many. 7 wouldn't be enough, or 7 would be way too much. Because if you measure, I don't have my millimeter ruler handy, but if we measure from corner to corner, it's like 4 3/4 inches from corner to corner. So 7 of those, 7 times 18, because that's our length, is 126 divided by 25, because that's how you get your millimeter inch conversion, is 5 inches. So if we would have done 7, they would have ran over the edge. So I think their math was not quite right, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So which the one I made the other day, I ended up doing 8 and made my box a little bigger. So what you really need to do is measure from corner to corner and see what your length is and then go from there. It was the first one. See? Yeah, 7 was too many. I agree. So once we did the 7 in the middle, then we did the alternating sides on either side. You could probably even do 2 here and add another one, I think. But at least you get the gist of it. The whole point is to learn how to do single stitch and patchwork, which is what we're doing. So now in between steps, so they tell you to repeat those steps. On step number 18 tells you to repeat steps until you're down to just 1. Between step 18 and step 19, I want you to add this in here. Or actually between step 20 and 21. So we're gonna go in, let me re-share you so you can see my screen. There we go. Get a little closer. There we go. So we're going to go in and we're going to pick a stitch to go around the edge of these stitches. So we're going to go back into our load stitch menu and they want us to pick category 1. I'm going to slide to category 1, utility stitches, subcategory 1, which is already highlighted. And we want to be on stitch 3. It's a sort of a slanted zigzag. So 1, 1, 3. And then we'll close our stitch menu. And we've got this funny looking little zigzag in here. So now we're going to do patchwork. Patchwork is super cool. I'm very excited about patchwork. So I hope everybody is excited about it as I am. But in here, what I want you to do is I want you to go down to tie off function. Go down to the tie off function and turn off the thread cut. Leave the tie off at the beginning and the tie off at the end, but turn off thread. You could actually turn off tie off at the end too, but we're going to leave it. Tie off at the beginning, tie off at the end or on, turn off the thread cutter. And then the other thing I want you to do is engage needle down, which is over here, needle down. Well, we're not going to do it yet because we don't have our fabric in there, but we're going to put needle down on because that's important and they did not add that in your directions. So between step 20 and 21, you want to definitely turn off that thread cutter. Now, the thing that they also did is they changed their presser foot to a 1/8 foot. So we'll do that when we go back over to the sewing machine. But I want to show you the screen stuff first. We're going to go down into stitch repeat. And this time we're going to hit patchwork. And when we hit patchwork, a couple of things happen. First of all, we get this little box over here and there's no numbers in it. There's no info in it, nothing yet, right? And then we also get the icon for reverse pops up here on the top of our screen. What's going to happen is we're going to put our foot on, we're going to start in this corner and we're going to sew down this line. And when we get down to this corner, we're going to hit the reverse button. And when we hit the reverse button, what it's going to do is it's going to tell us how long this line is. It's going to generate and say, all right, that line was this many millimeters. And it's going to put a little number right down here in this box. And because we're going to engage needle down, it's going to then stop with needle down so that we can pivot our fabric and then just start sewing again. And it's going to repeat the same length that it did on the first strip. So it's going to sew down this side and it's going to stop at that 63. I just know it's 63 because I've already done one. It's going to sew down to 63. It's going to stop. We're going to needle down. We're going to pivot. So basically we're telling it how long we want our line to be for the first pass. And then it's going to know what to do for the rest of them. So it's very cool. So we turn on patchwork. We don't have our length yet, and we just need to make sure to remember when we get to the end that we want to hit reverse. Do we have a question?
Yes.
Yes. What is it?
Would you mind repeating that a little slower?
Yes. Sorry, I get really excited about patchwork. So when I get excited, I talk fast. Okay. So patchwork, what this is, and I'll stitch this out a couple of times for you, but what patchwork is it's down in that stitch repeat menu down at the bottom. You're going to hit stitch repeat and I'm actually going to get rid of these 2 little boxes and get them off the screen for you. We're going to hit stitch repeat and we're going to hit patchwork. And when you hit patchwork, you notice right away, the reverse icon popped up on the top of our screen. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to sew from corner to corner. And when we get down here to our stop point, you're just going to hit the reverse button right above your needle. And that's what it's gonna do, is it's gonna say, okay, this is how long of a line she wants to sew. Then it's gonna go a needle down, and then you're gonna pivot. And then this time when you sew, it's gonna automatically stop that same length for you. And again, so as long as you measure these lines correctly, you should land in the corner each time. So let's try it, and I'll show it to you and see if it makes sense then. So we've got patchwork program on, and we have our reverse notification up here. So let's switch this camera. This is very exciting. So like if you ever have to patch someone's jeans, this is how you do it. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna switch to the 1A foot. The difference between the 1A foot and the 2A foot, and you see the difference in the 1A foot and the 2A foot? The 1A foot and the 2A foot, the big difference is the 2A foot does not have an opening for IDT, and the 1A foot does have an opening for IDT. So that's going to be your big difference between these 2 feet. They both have that channel on the back of the foot, so the heavier stitches can go through. So we're going to put the 1A foot on, and this time we're going to, there we go. This time we're going to engage our IDT. We're going to take our fabric, and remember we've got these 2 lines that go across where our needle is, and then the center line that shows us where our needle is. We're going to put our fabric underneath, and we're going to see if the red line lines up with our lines. And we're going to go ahead, and since I don't have a foot pedal, I'm going to use my start stop button, which means I'm going to have to, and we're just going to sew. And we're going to sew it all the way down to that corner. Now I go ahead and put my finger on the reverse button so that I'm ready. And when I get down to that corner, I'm just going to hit. Actually, I'm going to stop 1 second, make sure my needle down's turned on. I'm going to hit go again. And I'm going to hit reverse. And it's going to reverse. And then all I have to do is pivot. I stopped a little early, so now I'm just gonna have to fix it. But now when I go to sew, it's gonna know how long to do that line. And it's gonna stop for me. And look, it's stuck right in the corner. I can and again, not surprised, I'm excited. I just love that it does it so much. I just think it is so cool. And it's going to stop in the corner. And then we're going to turn, and we're going to press go again. Go right down that line till we get to the next corner. So if you've ever got like something with like a square patch, any kind of square patch that you need to stitch down to something, you just sew, and now it has to be a square patch. It can't be, you know, a rectangle because it measures the one side. And then I can press my cutter. There it is. So we told it how long our line was. Then it knew, because we drew our lines the same length, and it stitched it, stitched it, stitched it. So we just stopped and pivoted, stopped and pivoted, stopped and pivoted. Does that make sense? I know, it is very cool. I know, it's so fun. I'm so easily amused. Oh, wow, and I did really good. So if you've got questions, let's unmute, because then the rest of the instructions are basically assembling the bag, which is just using a 1/4 inch and sewing a 1/4 inch. And I think you all know how to do a straight stitch and sew a 1/4 inch seam. So I'd rather ask, do you have any questions about patchwork or single stitch?
How do you clear the screen?
Oh, okay, good question. Let me switch to my other camera. So if you want, get in there. Okay. I need a videographer and assist me. Okay, so like this is what the screen is I've got on my screen, and I want to clear this screen. Yes.
Yes.
All you got to do is pick a new stitch. So if I want to do a straight stitch, I'll just go to my stitch menu, pick my straight stitch, and it goes to the next stitch. You don't, and I mean, if you're done sewing, then just turn off the machine. There's no, it's not like a saved menu.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything weird. It's not like we went into sequencing or anything like that. But even if we did went into sequencing, we could just do the same thing. Just pick a new stitch and move on. Any other patchwork single stitch questions? Okay, should we move on to embroidery then?
I was not able to touch at the beginning, touch the thing and pull it to the screen.
Oh, okay, let's do that then. So down here at the bottom, you got to hit this little blue button in the corner. It's the detach button is what it's called. So, and not a lot of people, I mean, I personally don't use this very much. I just go into my menus, but it is beneficial if you're using the same buttons all the time and you don't want to have to go down into the menu. I'm actually going to go to Stitch Edit because those are really going to be more of the buttons you would use to pull up. So you're going to hit that detach button. And when you hit the detach button, did you get the blue circles over the items? And once you get the blue circles over the items, you just grab whatever the item is you want and pull it up to the top. So like stitch length and stitch width are probably going to be more common buttons that you're going to use. Not so much the weird buttons, but the mirror button is a good one if you're doing something where you're just constantly flipping back and forth. Did you get it to do it that time?
They're not moving. They don't have circles around them like that.
They didn't turn blue?
They turn blue, but they're not moving. I mean, the plus and the minus has turned blue, but that's it.
Oh, no, there shouldn't be the plus and minus shouldn't turn blue. So you have to hit this little button right here in the corner, the blue button in the corner by Stitch Editor.
Oh, now I have it. Now I have
There
it.
you go. And then when it turns green, you should get a big blue dot over top of everything.
I did.
And then
Okay.
once you get them up on your main screen, if you don't want them there anymore, because when I turn this off here, when I turn it off, oh, now you can see me, and turn it back on, they'll still be there. Like once you set it, it'll save the memory for you because it thinks, okay, this is how she wants to personalize her machine. So now I'm just personalizing Kim's machine. No problem. I'm here to help.
Okay,
Go
can
ahead.
you use other decorative stitches with this,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
with the patchwork?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use any of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not. So what you'll just need to do, let me go back to sewing. So see, there's the buttons and they'll stay there forever until you get rid of them. And if you want to get rid of them, just hit the little X and that'll take them off your main screen. They're still down here in your stitch editor section. You don't want them. I don't like my screen too much stuff on it. Same thing with my computer. I don't like too many. I'm big on folders. I don't like a lot of icons. So I can get rid of them. Patchwork, yeah, you can use patchwork with any of the stitches. When you hit stitch repeat and patchwork, whatever stitches on your screen, it'll do it. Now that being said, so the difference between patchwork and single stitch, patchwork, you're actually going to sew and tell it how long you're doing. Single stitch, you sort of have to do some math at the
You have
beginning.
to figure it out.
Figure it out, right? Like this is how long my pass is. It's 100 millimeters. So I make my stitch so that I can times it and make it 100 millimeters or close to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about single stitch or patch? All right, then let's do some embroidery. And like I said, you've got this lesson and you've also got another lesson that goes over a lot of that kind of stuff. It doesn't give you a project, but it does give you a lesson. So now we're going to make this little burlap candle wrap, which this lesson has a lot of really useful stuff in it for layering. And I use this stuff in this lesson a lot for sewing. Let's go in and change that. Okay. So we're going to go down to our little house at the bottom of our screen. And we're going to switch to embroidery. And it's going to pop up. I don't have an embroidery unit on, so it's not going to yell at me that it needs to calibrate. Oh, come on. Maybe hers is very mad that I don't have an embroidery unit on. Somebody's calibrating, I can hear them. Well, Kim, your machine is very sassy. It doesn't want to embroider today. Come on, little guy. You can do it.
Your project 2.0 bag, what was the interfacing? Was it just shapelets
Oh, there we go. Yeah. It had a temporary
or
error.
woven fusible?
So there we go. So we're in embroidery. The first thing we want to do on this project is we're going to switch the hoop. So we're going to go down here. Let me pull this back so that icon is not in our way. We're going to go down to the hoop options. We're going to open up hoop options and we're going to switch to a 120 by 120 hoop.
There.
And then we're going to go down to the bottom and hit hoop options again to close that menu. Now hoop options, let me go back in here, not in your lesson. Hoop options has got a lot of valuable information in it. It's where all your hoops are located. If you want to change the background of your hoop, so like say you're embroidering on a denim jacket and you want to see what an embroidery design would look like on that denim jacket, you can go in here and adjust the color of the background of the screen. I'm not going to do that. This is also where you would go to turn on the grid. If you're a grid fan, I am not a grid fan. Some people are a grid fan. So if you really like having that grid in the background, you can turn that grid on in hoop options. You can adjust the size of the grid. Now, if I do use a grid, I like to use a 25 millimeter grid because then it marks it in inches for me because 25 millimeters is about an inch. So if you change that to 25 millimeters, then all these little boxes are an inch. So that gives me a better idea. Oh, except for I didn't actually change it because I didn't turn it on. Let's try that again. There, you have to hit the OK button first. That's better. It's like those little boxes, there's not that many inches in a 120 by 120 hoop. So you can see that a 120 by 120 hoop is about 5 inches by 5 inches. So if you like a grid, I would set it at a 25 millimeter grid, but it's up to you. I personally don't like the grid. It drives me bonkers. So I turn mine off. It's really funny. Thomas loves a grid and I hate a grid. So you can always tell which one of us has been sewing on a machine, whether or not the grid has been turned on or turned off. There. So our grid is off because I just don't like a grid. We have a 120 by 120 hoop and we're going to go and load a design. So over here, the little butterfly is going to be our designs. We're going to click on the little butterfly and we need to find the minis category. So we're going to swipe over all the way to the end and find minis. We're going to click on minis. And then when they want us to pick design number 7, I believe. Yes, 7. So you're going to click and then click and hold and it'll pull that design up for you. Now we want 2 of these, 2. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The way I usually do it and the way that's in the instructions, and we're going to press and hold and it's going to pop up and it's going to give us some options. We can also turn that grid on and off here. We can delete our design if we want to get rid of it. We can mirror it, but we're going to duplicate. So we're going to duplicate once and it's going to give us 2 of those little flowers. Then once we have our 2 flowers, again, I like to make sure and read the directions so I don't get ahead. We're going to change the color of that second flower. So we have a green box around one of the flowers. We want to make sure that there's just a green box around one flower. That means that's the one we've selected. And we're going to go over here to this little artist palette and open it up. So this is basically, this shows you how your design's going to stitch out. So we've got 2 designs on our screen now. Both of them are yellow. We want to press the yellow of the second one. Oh, sorry. Yellow of the second one, and then hit the little palette at the top. It's going to bring up a color panel, and we want to, I believe, change this to pink. Thread information, color edit. That's, yes, pink. So we're just going to touch in the pink area and pull up a pink. You can sort of do it however, wherever you want it. You did not get a palette?
No.
Okay, so when you press on this, okay, so let me show you something. So see how the green box lights up around my color?
Uh-huh.
So when the green box is around my color, then I hit this palette at the top. And it should pop up at the bottom.
It did.
Okay, so then you would just click on wherever you wanted to. They told us to do pink, so we clicked on pink and then just click OK, and then it will change that to pink. Now we're going to scale. Now this is, so there's 2 ways to resize, or 2 things in the machine. There's scale and there's resize. Scale is going to let you make the design bigger or smaller by 20%, but it's not going to add any stitches or take any stitches away. So there's scale and then there's resize. Resize, you can make the design bigger or smaller, and it's going to adjust and compensate for your stitches. It's going to add stitches to or take stitches away. So we're going to play with both. The first one we're going to do is we're going to scale. So there's a couple of different ways we can scale. We're going to close this little palette. So if we want to scale, we can actually grab on this corner and drag this out. And you see how it stops and it won't let me drag it anymore? That's because it's made it to its 20%. It's gone as big as it can go without adding more stitches. So we started, let's do this. Let me undo. So we started, if you go down to edit, there's also a scale button right here. And when you click on the scale button, it tells you what size it is. So the design is 17.4 by 17.4. If I touch and drag, whoops, you gotta make sure you get that corner. If I touch and drag that corner, it takes it to 20.9 by 20.9. So it made the design 3 millimeters about bigger than it was before. But the stitch count did not change. Now we're gonna move it. Oh, now we're going to do the yellow flower. Okay, so we're going to move this one out of the way and we're going to click on the yellow flower. And you see when we click on the yellow flower, he brightens up. So we're going to bring him down here. This one we're going to do resize though. So down in that same edit box over here to the right, there's 2 little butterflies, a mommy and a baby butterfly. That's your resize. So if you click on resize, your screen is going to change and it's going to say resize at the top. And now when we adjust the size, which I can't remember how big we're supposed to make it. Okay. So we can do this a couple of different ways. We can again just touch and drag and make it as big as we want. We can use the arrows to make it bigger or smaller. The other thing we can do is just touch one of those numbers and it will pop up in the box. And you type in the size. We want it to be 35 millimeters. And we're going to just press OK. And then it's going to make it an equal 35 millimeters. Yes, I did that. The key panel, if you know how big you want it to be, being able to touch this and say, oh, 35. Well, why is it not letting me do 35? It's being fussy for some reason, so we're just gonna do it for it. There we go. So being able to resize these designs, and what I should have done, let me show you this. So stitch count. So this, yeah, here we go. So this has 938 stitches in it. We go to resize that up to 35 and say, okay. Now it has 1,276 stitches. So by making this one bigger, we got more stitches. This one we made bigger, but it kept the same amount of stitches. Oh, well, it's the total. But that's how the difference between resize and scale. If you just touch and drag, you're going to just scale it and it's not going to add stitches. You have to go to that little 2 butterflies to get it to resize and add stitches or take stitches away, which is important if you're wanting it to, you know, I think it makes them look better. Unless I'm like doing it and I'm just making it just a skosh. So like if I've got a design in a hoop and let's say it just barely doesn't fit in my 120 by 120 hoop, and I don't really want to get out a giant hoop and waste all that stabilizer, I'll go into scale and just notch it down once or twice, just enough to get it to fit into my 120 by 120 hoop. That's when I use resize. If I just barely needed to fit into a different size hoop so that, you know, you've already got your hoop, you've prematurely hooped your fabric, prematurely hooped your design, you assumed it's going to fit in the 120 by 120 hoop, and then you pull it up on the screen and it's just barely too big. That's when I'll go into resize and just barely bloop, bloop, and make it just small enough that it fits into that hoop so I don't have to go rehoop everything again. Now, let's see. We want to overlap the pink flower just over our yellow flower a little bit at your discretion. And then they want us to go in back to the little butterfly and they want us to find a leaf, which is stitch number 35. Then what we're going to do is we're going to touch, they want us to duplicate this twice, I believe. Touch 35, touch and hold. Yes. They want us to add more than one flat or more than one leaf. So we could do this like we did before and hit duplicate 2 times. We can also go down here to this, what looks like 2 pieces of paper, and we can press and hold and it'll ask us how many times do we want to duplicate it. And you can say 2 and it'll do it all at once. So you've got different ways of doing things. Not one way is better than the other. It's just a different way. I actually went and taught a class in South Dakota with Sarah Snuggerud that does Sewing Mastery. And we learned that there's a lot of things that she does a certain way and I do them a different way. Not one is right or wrong. It's just giving you that different option, sort of like computers. There's a lot of different ways to do things on a computer. So then we're going to adjust these designs, these leaf designs. So they want us to pull them out of the way so that we can play with them. So we've got 3 little leaves there. We want one of the leaves. We'll go ahead and let that be number 1. And we want to scale him. Touch the 13 in the scale, type in 10.4. 10.4. Press OK. We're going to have to tell Kim about that. Hers is not working for some reason. Is anybody else not getting the touchpad to not work? Like you're typing it in and it's not rescaling. Let's see. 10.4, press OK. The design should now be 10.4 by 21, which it is. And then the stitch count did not change. Now we're going to click on, oh, I missed a leaf. Then we're going to click on this leaf and we're going to make him 15. We'll F that or up that to 15.6 by 31.6 and make it bigger. And then our last leaf, charge the 3rd leaf, the center control. So this leaf, so right now you see this little lock button here. So as we've been scaling, if we just adjust one number, it automatically scales the other number to keep it proportional. With this lock button, if we unlock the button, now we can adjust the width of this and the length of it, so it doesn't keep it proportional. So that being said, if you're ever doing this, you'll want to pay attention to that lock button. If you want your design to stay proportional, you want to make sure that you don't accidentally hit that lock button. Because if you do, then it'll start adjusting it all kinds of weird different ways. But that being said, if you did do something and made a mistake, so like if I made this leaf really fat, oh, we're on scale, so it'll only do it 20%. So if I made it really fat and I screwed up and I went, oh no, I didn't want my lock to be unlocked, I can hit the undo button and it will take it back. So until I'm working on another element, I can undo, and it'll fix my mistakes to a point, which is great. I want to change the height of this leaf, 15.6. And I'm going to change the width of this leaf to 21. Oh, there we go, 21. Oh, it's 21.1. That's why it was yelling at me. So I'm going to change it. So now we got this little short fat leaf, we got a big tall leaf, and we got a skinny leaf. So now position the leaves. There's additional. Okay, so then we can touch and drag this leaf and move it wherever we want. We can also, we've got this little dot above the top of the leaf. If I click on that dot, I can then rotate that dot any position I want. And you see, as I rotate it, it changes it down here, and it shows you up here what degrees you're turning them. So you can take these leaves then, and it tells you to position them wherever you want. So I can take this guy and I can turn it. And I can put it here if I want. I can take this guy and I'll turn it. So you can just take this and put this stuff where you want it and design all kinds of stuff on your screen. Now I'm actually going to take and I'm going to mirror this side to side. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to turn that guy. So I can just move these wherever I want them to be. Here, if I like that. Now, oops, I could fiddle and play with this all day. So now, because we pulled our flowers in first, our flowers are showing up in the background and our leaves are showing on the top of our flowers. So we want to adjust this. And this is what I said earlier that I use all the time, layering. So if you're in here and you're playing and you're making some design, and then you look at it and you go, okay, I really like that. If you go to the layer button up here at top, it looks like 3 pieces of paper. It's going to show you, and you can see this little triangle in the corner. You can touch that and drag it open however you want. And you can actually take and move your screen over too, so you can work in tandem. So the process in which this design is going to stitch out is just how we put the designs in. Yellow flower is going to be first, then the pink flower, then the leaves. The problem is the leaves, some of them are on top of our flowers, and we don't want our flowers on top, or our leaves on top of our flowers. So all we're going to do is we're going to click on these 3 little lines, and we're going to touch and drag it down to the bottom, and touch and drag it down to the bottom. So now the order is it's going to stitch the leaves first in the background, then it's going to stitch our flowers on top of the leaves. Isn't that very cool that we can do that in our machine? Then once we've got our designs in order, how we want them to be, we want to make sure that this whole design is in the center of our hoop, because it's going to be easier for us to hoop and embroider this out later, right? So if we select all, click this button right here at the top, this is select all. It's going to highlight all of the pieces in our design. You see them all in individual boxes and then one big box all the way around them. Then we're already on move. If we hit the center of our dial, it's going to move our design so that it's in the center of our hoop. So now when we go to stitch it out, we know that those lines on our hoop are going to be centered up with our design. Then we're going to go to embroidery stitch out. I was going to say, they're going to yell at me because I don't have an embroidery unit on this machine. But when we go to embroidery stitch out, you're going to get some options for, let's see if it lets me do it this way. No. Okay, so you're going to go to embroidery stitch out. And when you go to embroidery stitch out, I'll show this picture. This is the screen that's going to pop up when you go to embroidery stitch out. So you want to make sure you got a 120 by 120 hoop. Right now I have the zigzag plate attached to this machine. If you are embroidering a lot, put your straight stitch needle plate on. That will help with the stitching out. I've got the 60 foot selected. This is the better of the two free motion feet. If you've got both, my active stitch is turned on. I don't have a basting option. I am going to cut my jump stitches and my automatic thread cutter at the end. This is your important box though here. So you got color block, sort, and color block merge. So what that's going to do is we've got those 3 leaves and it thinks that they're all individual embroidery designs. So it's going to stitch out this leaf. Whoops. It's going to stitch out that leaf and then it's going to stop. And it's going to tell you to change your thread. Well, it's the same thread. So you're going to stitch again. If you don't want it to stop in between these 3 leaves, then you're going to click on color block merge when you go to embroidery stitch out, and it's going to take the stops out of the same colored designs. Does that make sense? So if we had this in the hoop, they're wanting us to stitch with burlap, and burlap's got all those little holes in it. I didn't even look to see what kind of stabilizer they recommended that we used. Here we go. Cutaway stabilizer. So if it were me, it's not, but if it were me, I would use a sticky back cutaway stabilizer so that you could lay that burlap in there and it would stick down. And then I would also make sure, and they did not tell you to do this, but I would also make sure to use a topper stabilizer, some kind of wash away or that cellophane looking stuff, and put it on top of the burlap, and that'll keep your stitches from popping down into the burlap and you losing them. Can you sew with the embroidery machine or the embroidery unit attached? Yes, you can sew with the embroidery unit attached. Mine pretty much stays on all the time at home unless I'm quilting. I leave my unit on all the time. But the clear cellophane on the top will keep the stitches from sinking down into the burlap holes, which is not very fun. If you ever want to check it, stitch out something on burlap without a piece of topper and then stitch the same thing on another piece of burlap with topper and see the difference. It's amazing the difference that a piece of topper stabilizer will make. Any other, so questions? What do we have questions about embroidery? About layering, color merging? Any questions? No questions? You guys are so quiet. Know that as the lessons go on, they'll get a little lengthier. These are just sort of intro lessons to get you back and started. That was very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. The layering thing, I use the layering thing all the time. Like I'm all the time using that layer button, moving things around. Or if you just want to select certain items and group them together, that'd be the same place you could do that. Let's look at that again and I'll show you that. This is not in the lesson.
I will show you how when it's threaded. And I'll show you how that one's threaded.
Sure. So the other thing in this layer button are these two guys here, and we did not talk about this in this lesson. So this is your select all button. If we clicked it, it's going to select everything. This is multi-select. So if you select this one, like if I just wanted the leaves, I could take the leaves and select them. Or if I wanted just the flowers, I could do that. So if you press that middle one, that gives you the ability to just pick up certain things. You can also, if I wanted to turn this, so right now it's 5 individual embroidery designs. If I wanted to, I could group it and turn it into one embroidery design. So being able to turn it into one embroidery design makes it so that if I can't mess it up now because I can't accidentally hit the wrong item and move it, right? So when we're ungrouped and we've got all these individuals, I can accidentally hit this, like if I'm not paying attention, and I can move that design. So being able to group it together once it's the way I want it, that keeps me from goofing and messing things up. See, somehow at some point I knocked it out of center. If ever you're working in one of these menus and you can't see, being able to grab the hoop and move that over like that is nice. You can also take 2 fingers and squeeze them together and make it smaller if you need to, and move it over so that you can still use all your buttons, but still see your work surface. Oh, questions, hold on. Okay, very helpful. Oh, good. Really neither. Oh, good. Can you show the resize button again? Yes. Will class handouts always be sent on Sunday evening? That is my plan. Would you rather me send them? Would you rather me send the class handouts earlier?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. Like Friday night, maybe? Would that work?
Yep, that'll work.
Because then that I don't like to send them too early because we should be good after this month, but like we had a couple people sign on. So then I had to figure out how to send out the email again real quick. But yeah, I could do them Friday night. That's not a problem at all now that we're all set up. And what was the other question? There was another question. Will the leaf under the flower show? Yes, just so that we can do this. Fridays would be good. Okay, there was another question. What was the question? Oh, resize button. Okay, your resize button is, let's ungroup this.
Oh,
Okay, so like right now it's grayed out because I don't have anything selected. None of my designs have a square around them. So it's grayed out. It's right here. So it's just gonna yell at me. But if I click on the leaf, then it turns to white, and I can just click on the resize, and then it'll pop up. And like I said, it will say resize at the top of the screen. So now if I go ahead and change it, it's gonna add stitches while it does it. And then I can make it and move it again if I wanted to. And then if you, for some reason, I don't remember, what did I do? I don't remember what size I made it. It's too big. You can hit cancel and it will take it back and not resize it. But once you hit okay, then that will resize it.
okay. Once you've grouped something,
Yep.
can you ungroup it?
Yep. So like,
Okay, how do you do?
So right now I'm ungrouped.
Yeah.
So there I'm grouped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all one design. So if I click on it again, it's green. I just click on it and now it's ungrouped.
Oh, so you click on it again.
Yep.
And it's in. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
We
Next
can do
month-
this, Liz,
you can-
we can do this on any design that we load into.
Yes. Yes. So if
From
you
the-
don't want to do these flowers, you want to pick different designs, you can pick different designs and use all those same steps that we just did.
But how about like on the USB stick?
Oh
You
yeah.
load some, oh yeah, okay, okay.
So like for instance, I'm not signed, nobody signed into this one. So you can do it with like words too. So let's get rid of you.
Oh,
so
words
like
would be
if-
great.
Yeah. So like if I go in and I just here we go. Why not? Christmas is over, but we'll put it in there. So we'll add that Christmas design in there. And we'll go to the alphabets. And I have a bad habit of always doing big alphabets. So we'll do the little one. Okay. So right now, oops. Let's do this. So we've got that. Now, if we go to the layering, it's going to have both the designs. We can select all, we can group it together and make one. Move it around. We do all the same stuff we just did.
Great.
Yes, and the additional handouts are they're very good because they go through more of the screens and how to work through the step-by-steps. No, it won't cause a problem with the see-through, Jenny. Because it's most likely you're not going to be that bulky. It's not going to show up that much. Whoop.
Hey, Liz.
Yes.
So by grouping it together, is it just all going to be one big old stitch? It's not going to stop at all.
Well, it'll stop between its color changes. But
Okay.
the whole reason I group together is so I don't accidentally move something. That's really the whole reason. You don't have to group it together. It's just because sometimes I'm clumsy and accidentally so I've been working on I've been making stitch monograms out of these little mini designs. And I have like those little miniature flowers. I mean, I'll have like 50 of them on the screen. So sometimes I just group it together so that I don't knock one out of whack someplace. But you don't even have to group together. If you just go to stitch out, it'll
Okay.
stitch out the way that it is, whether it's grouped or not grouped.
Okay, thanks.
I need a bigger notebook. Yes, you're going to need a hefty binder for this one. Okay, any other questions? So this one wasn't so bad. This was pretty good. Working our way into it. Every month we're going to get a little more and a little more and a little more into it. We are going to hit everything. We're going to do Stitch Creator and we're going to do Applique Creator and we're going to play. There's a lesson with the Grand Hoop. There's a lesson. There's a bunch of stuff. So, and then, I tend to go off topic a lot too. So if there's ever we're doing something and you have a question about something else, that I'll veer off and add extra information and that's not in the lessons. I like playing in the machine. There's a lot I can do in the machine without software or any of that kind of stuff. So it's, you paid for all these features, let's use them all, right? And I've actually been using, so I've got Icon 2 at home currently, and I've been playing with it. And I actually did all of these lessons on Icon 2 as well. So they're, you can use them interchangeably. For those of you that may be upgrading to Icon 2, you'll be fine. You can still keep going with the class. Any other questions today? Okay, so now what will happen is I will upload this video to a private YouTube and I will email out, it'll probably be this afternoon, I'll email out the video so that you can go back and rewatch it. You've got your paper lessons that you can go over there and we will see you next month. I know we're doing a sewing and embroidery next month, but I haven't looked at them yet to see what they are. But we'll do another sewing and embroidery one next month. So I hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions in the meantime, give me a shout or send me an email or whatever, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Bye.
Great class, Liz.
Thank you, Barb.
Bye.
Bye.